What I love about mystery teachings is that it is actually a complete and coherent way of presenting reality. Usually we get fragments, we get bits and pieces of things, and then we could even get more heightened anxiety or more confusion. In one episode, for instance, I'll be laying out the laws of this reality so that then that sets it up for the next episode. So what you're having is, instead of these really cool and captivating fragments, you're having a full and complete, not just bridge, but a full tapestry or map.
You talk about predictive programming. Does that change your perception of reality?
Predictive programming would be what programs your perception of reality. So we'll see this a lot with subliminal cues. Let's say in the news, or we kept hearing repetitive narratives, until all of a sudden, now we're not even shocked when the event occurs because we've already subconsciously been so either groomed to it or accepting of it or even just expecting it. When I talk about the news or the media and things like that, I am very fluid. I am very nuanced. I don't come from a large calcified judgmental place.
I love that you're saying all this, because having been in that world, these are still a lot of my friends and everything. I don't watch the news because I don't want that in my nervous system. I don't want to be stressed, but not because I think there's some big mass agenda or whatever. And if there is, I'm so detached from that. That's just another thing that's happening.
And so you take that spiritual war that's going on at that level, that metaphysical level of, you see played out in Gnosticism, trying to wake people up to the God within, versus the ones that are trying to create control systems through that narrative. You see that spiritual opposition playing out on that level, and then that fractalizes, that plays out on every level.
Ever since I wrote my goals down with the pen, my dreams and reality have both been blending in. I just hope that in the end, my debt don't extend me, I'm a dividends if it did.
Today we're joined by Sarah Alcaldi, a teacher, healer, alchemist, and the host of the new series Mystery Teachings on the world's largest conscious streaming platform, Gaia.com. Sarah's work bridges ancient wisdom, modern science, and consciousness studies to help people understand how our thoughts and energy shape the world around us. Your reality is literally being created by the quantum field around you right now. Most people think the space around them is empty, but quantum physics proved it's packed with energy patterns constantly affecting your biofield. Your phone and Wi-Fi are creating electromagnetic chaos that's disrupting your natural frequency. Here's what's wild. Scientists figured out how to actually flip this. Instead of your environment draining you, it can actually heal you by broadcasting beneficial quantum frequencies into your space. I actually use this app called Quantum Upgrade in my home, and the energy shift is incredible. You control it from your phone and feel the difference in minutes. And I really want to gift you with that quantum field. So just comment quantum and I'll send you my code to get it for free. Sarah, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me.
And congrats on your new show.
Oh, thank you.
You're on season 2 now, right?
Yeah, we just got done filming season 2.
Yeah, and it's funny, I have to just say for anybody, we, as soon as we met, started talking about Xena, Warrior Princess. I wonder if there's some hidden key there that awakens something in people, in their 30s later.
Oh, that show is deeply esoteric.
Yes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, on so many levels. And we talked about this, but I've watched it now 3 or 4 times, the entire thing. And always pivotal times in life. At age 9 or 10, I remember watching it for the first time and being so captivated by this show and the characters and the roles and the principles. Like you said, it's so esoteric. But then later I'd watch it 15 years later, and it's unbelievable the things that it brought up within me.
Oh, totally, yeah. And then you'll notice this through line throughout the whole series, which was them always trying to figure out and align themselves with what the greater good is. And that's so esoteric. They knew what they were doing, the production of that show. They were very much artisans of their craft. And so it's one of those things where a person could appreciate that on any level. Whatever level they were connecting with it, there was large and valuable takeaways. But I was always connecting with it at the esoteric level because it was there. And they wanted that audience to see it that way.
Yeah, I think I was too and didn't realize I was. As a 10-year-old, 15-year-old, whatever, I didn't know that's why I was so drawn to it. But so clearly that's why.
Yeah, I've even seen Tarantino do a full-on breakdown of why her redemption path is so epic, and how they needed to make the character never accept her redemption but always go towards it. So it's definitely dense and
I
deep.
need to see that.
Yeah,
You're right. And now, okay, so about mystery teachings, why you're really here. How does the show bridge the gap between spiritual understanding but also actionable self-effort?
So what I love about mystery teachings is that it is actually a complete and coherent way of presenting reality, meaning that usually we get fragments, we get bits and pieces of things, and then we could even get more heightened anxiety or more confusion because we have this one piece of information we're receiving and we don't know how to plug it into a larger whole. And so what this does is act like a total bridge, actually, because in one episode, for instance, I'll be laying out the laws of this reality, so that then that sets it up for the next episode, where now, once you already understand the laws of this reality, you have really deep clarity for now why the next episode is presenting the next piece of information, and then the next piece. And so what you're having is, instead of these really cool and captivating fragments, you're having a full and complete, not just bridge, but a full tapestry or map of this reality.
And so in one season, are you hitting like one topic all the way through, or and then it changes in the next season, or are you kind of giving, like, what's the structure of this for people watching who don't know?
Ooh, I just got chills right now because I made a connection. The first season is actually, the whole way through line is the greater good.
Wow, no accidents.
Whoa. Yeah, and it's not until you actually presented that to me that I even realized that.
Wow.
It really is, because we start off with a natural law. Natural law is the depths of Dharma. Dharma, as you know, I'm sure, has many different layers to it, and depending on what layer we're talking about Dharma, will depend on exactly how Dharma reveals itself. So in episode 1, I'm talking about Dharma from its largest cosmic force, before we go into duty or all of those other ways that Dharma expresses itself. It's natural law. And so because of that, that starts off and sets up the whole season.
Wow.
And so it is, at the end of the day, morality, and not a morality the way that humans turn that concept into whatever they want to make it believe, based off of our own limited beliefs, our own judgments, or just our own personality. But instead, it is a complete morality, one where it's talking about Dharma not as a judge of people, but rather as the actual nature that you're incarnated into. And so because of that, it starts off there as like what good would be from this higher viewpoint, this higher vantage point, rather than what good would be from whatever, we come up with based off of our own.
Or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's actually where it first orients the seeker. That way they go, okay, well, I know that, and then moving into the season, what you'll see is that through line of, well, then by the time we get to the timeline split episode, you'll see that instead of the way that sometimes very beautiful but new age topics get well known, but then they kind of lose their core meaning because they get so dispersed and popular, you start really understanding how natural law feeds into the timeline split. So it really is a complete guide, because it takes a person through the whole journey of spiritual awakening.
It's really interesting too with like Dharma, because, and the timeline split, actually both, because where I am in my life now, and right before you, I was having a whole human design episode, and we talked about this as well. Because Dharma is, in a way, somebody's purpose or self-effort, or like their blueprint, I guess, right? Why they're here, how they're here. But, so I went through such an awakening in the last 6 months that just went deeper than I could have imagined. I didn't think I could have conversations anymore. I was like, how am I ever, I can't have a podcast, I can't have conversations, because I was like seeing how every conversation we have is from the body identification. And when I had that moment, I mean, we don't have to go into it, but full fractals. I don't even see visuals in life. I can't visualize. If I close my eyes, I see eyelids. And so though in that moment had full fractals, and I went into it, hearing voices, just the whole thing. when I came back from it, there was like no body identification for weeks before I started to build it again on its own. It just started to come back. But from that moment, I realized like, okay, Dharma, but whose Dharma is it? The body, the mind? I'm not the body, I'm not the mind. So why not now I'm in a place of just observing and watching, I'm not the doer. And from the perspective of the observer, watching this body just do what it does, and the mind, everything still goes on. I see clients every day, I'm still doing podcasts, things still happen, but I'm not the doer, if that makes sense. So how does that fit in with like Dharma or, timelines? If we're that consciousness that's experiencing everything at once, aren't I experiencing all those timelines at once?
Dharma, I could write a book on, because it's so core to esoterica. You could even say that like, what are all the different traditions have in common? Dharma. Whether you call it Dharma or not, it's all about Dharma. And so on the level that you're talking about Dharma, is kind of like, I love how you called it that blueprint, because we hear it a lot as purpose, and it's definitely purpose, but actually, to be even more precise, Dharma would be at that level that you're regarding it, kind of like that blueprint, because karma can be, we can be stuck in karmic loops, but at the same time, karma and Dharma have a meeting point, a unification point, and that's the blueprint. So when we come into this life with things that we are almost kind of like forced to learn, not by an external force, but forced to learn because we are so, locked inside that patterning. That also plays kind of like this liberated from that higher self that you were talking about, part of Dharma, which comes in to the same incarnation in the same body mind and finds a way to liberate itself through that pathway.
Okay.
And that's another way that we can look at purpose. It's a way of liberating the self from the karma to turning it into the dharmic features of it.
Yeah, so it's like the liberation is still the main objective, but it's like my way of getting there might look different from yours based on karma and dharma.
Yes. And then how we tie timelines into this with dharma at the level you're talking about is that what I have noticed and what has brought me great peace is that there are different timelines playing out even within this collective, and it's depending on a person's dharma. And so in this case, dharma would mean that level of what are they here to learn. And that plays into my NPCs episode, which was very controversial, but it needed to be known. And not only did it need to be known, but I think Mystery Teachings did an amazing job of laying it out in a complete way, where instead of looking at NPCs, non-player characters, as these filler type energies, the way that sometimes this concept can get portrayed, it's now seen as a specific class of dharma. Meaning that, would you get mad that somebody's not here to learn and play out the level of consciousness that you're at? And would you judge somebody for having a different complete level of consciousness? And so those are also looked at as dharmas too, because a person's dharma is more than just their purpose. It's literally how their whole level of consciousness is accessed, is perceived, is lived through. And so these different levels of consciousness are all occupying timelines that you would even look, if you put them together, like they're one film strip, they're one unity, they're all a cohesion. But when you like zoom in, you'll see that like a person right next to you with a completely different level of consciousness, therefore a completely different dharma, is on a completely different timeline, and you're like all sharing the same space.
Yeah. See, I have this like perspective of no free will and that everything is predestined, which people don't like to hear that because they want to know that they have some free will. I feel the only free will we have is you get to decide when you'll wake up. Like you get to decide, I'm wiping the slate clean. I'm going to liberate. I want to know myself, and I want to know myself now. And then that's your free will. You can do this 1,000 more times if you want, you can, whatever, but you get to decide, I'm not playing tag anymore. Like, oh, you did this to me, Sarah. I'm gonna come back in your next life and kill you, and then you're gonna drown me, and then we're gonna have a show together, and then we'll be best friends. Like all day, I'm like, I'm just gonna right now be like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm no more karmic ties. The slate is clean. Whatever you did to me in a past life or this life, it's forgiven. Whatever I did to you, it's just the slate is clean. But to your point, I was on Sahara Rose's podcast, and she wrote a book on Dharma and everything. And we're talking about this, and I said, yeah, but I'm talking, I'm driving in this self-liberation, and she says, but Frank, your path is moksha. Your path is liberation. That's not everybody's path in this life right now. Someone else's path might be to whatever else, And so that's kind of what I'm hearing from you, I think, is like, that's their path. So don't worry if they're getting this right now or not. You're choosing in a way, in your blueprint, spiritual liberation.
Yes, and I would consider the free will to be that initiation point in between different levels of consciousness. Mm-hmm. So at a certain point, a person is playing out that predestiny, but then it's meant to have this larger dharma. Mm-hmm. So the karma or the predestiny has this larger catalyst that it's trying to do, and it's trying to get a person into some form of their own sovereignty. And so karma, which I consider a force of fate, it's actually a counterpart with free will. So they shape and mold a person, and then they're supposed to, if they are both working together, if the person should both see their predestined fate, their karma, and then where they do have free will, the free will grow, and then they'll start to harmonize until they plateau the person into what I consider to be their destiny. So destiny and fate I find separate. I find fate more karmic, not in a bad way, just in a way where you planned your life. And then the free will comes in as these spaces, these gaps of, wait, I can choose differently. I can choose how this plays out. Yeah,
I definitely resonate with that. That's where the free will comes in of like, maybe, okay, that's an interesting way to think of like how it plays out. Because I would just say it's that it would play out anyway, but you can remove yourself from being, like there would be like any of these gurus, for example, who have had like cancer or something in the past, in the 60s and 70s, and it would be like a terminal thing, and they're not doing treatments, but they're lecturing and they're vibrant, and every day they're out there and they're like, they tell me I have cancer and the body's feeling pain. I don't feel that, and the body, let it die. If it's gonna die, it dies. But they're just because they're so, and I think maybe that's where the liberation and the free will came in of like, I won't let that, it's not me. I'm not connected to the identity of somebody who has that cancer.
Yeah, and so the free will come in at different spaces. For instance, the free will for a person, like I actually loved how you first said that about being liberated, and it was kind of like your choice to go, wait, like I have some free will, and then I choose to not continue this cycle, even if it's good, even if, oh wow,
right.
This tit for tat turned into like a partnership in a next life. Like you have that free will to go, oh, and that isn't like something, sometimes it's confused with randomness. It's not necessarily randomness, it's creative. And so I understand how that could sound like semantics, but it's actually just nuance. When it comes to creativeness, now you're connecting with consciousness before anything. And that consciousness before anything is the actual factor that can change something. And so when a person is connecting with free will, it could be at the level of kind of like, I would say, instead of a person who has cancer, who's a guru, who's teaching, it would be kind of like the free will of making a different decision. Maybe one that wasn't based, and I wouldn't know where their motivation is. So I'm not saying they're motivated to not be in the body and to come off a certain way. No, they could literally feel like this was not important. The body's not important because they're so, like expanded.
Well, that's it. They're like, well, what's dying?
Right.
What's dying? It was never born. How could it die? That's literally, that's the perspective. They're like, this figure in a dream is dying. So it's just like, you know?
Yeah, so I guess free will would come into play with someone who's not that enlightened.
It's hard. I'm like, how do I have a podcast now? I can't have a conversation. You're like, you know? In the show, you do talk about how sometimes we ignore these divine experiences. I saw this clip where you're saying like, you think that a divine experience is this angel showing up in your room with these big bright lights, but sometimes you've missed the opportunity because you maybe dismissed it as too small. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so when we want to connect with source, or even just our higher self, our team, our spirit team, whatever it may be, I would say from my personal experience, the largest thing that we see, that I see an issue with, is that people think that connection means something very literal. In either like the English language or a visual, and those are all great if a person's receiving them, but the ones who struggle or fear or feel like there's a lack are obviously the ones not having those experiences. So how do people who aren't seeing a physical angel or hearing, words inside their clairaudience that are in English, how do they still feel connected? How can they connect to the source? And so what I lay out in that episode is actually about how whatever you're experiencing is simply not being validated enough. It is being overlaid with lack. It is being projected so heavily on disconnection that how could anything get through? You'd have to really feel connected first to start validating the subtle, very invisible information that's always streaming. I'm claircognizant.
Me too.
Yeah,
That's how I do my sessions. Yeah, you didn't know?
I knew. I could tell.
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah, someone on a train in Norway told me.
Yeah, psychic had to tell me.
You do? Yeah. And it's so funny because he was like, "Can I say something?" And I was like, "Sure." And he was like, "Your guides want you to know that in your sessions, sometimes if you feel a little insecure, it's because you're not audient or visual." And you just know, but you don't know, but they want you to know you're claircognizant is what it's called. Yeah, and I was like, oh, thank you. Like now I know why I just know.
Yeah, claircognizant people, I see. I know that that's funny because I said I'm claircognizant, right. So you don't see, but I see invisibly a purple crown around their crown center, like very, very distinct.
I was at this Mind Valley event. And I was speaking there, and they had a thing that reads your aura, and I always take these with a grain of salt, but I did it, and they took my photo, and it was purple around my head. Yeah. Interesting.
So because I'm claircognizant, it's easy to tell people, hey, don't care, but it's also hard to tell people, hey, don't care, because it's like I get invisible information all the time, so it's easy for me to not need to feel connected through those, very dense or sensory cues.
Such a good point, because even so in my sessions, I get very specific. Someone comes in, let's say with an ailment or something, and I'll say, oh, you were abandoned at age 6 and this, and then we clear the energy around it. And yeah, it's like sometimes you have to really be confident in that claircognizance because, and now at this point I don't have to be because and I'm sure you too, after so many years, I don't doubt a single thing that's coming out of my mouth in the sessions. But in the beginning, it takes a lot of trust because, like you said, it's not this big experience right in your face.
Totally. That's why people like you and me needed to literally be told by other people.
Right. Yeah, so true. Yeah. Oh my God. Who am I to become a healer? What if I'm not ready? Every healing facilitator, whether a breathwork teacher, a sound bath facilitator, or energy worker, has these thoughts when they first start out. It's totally normal. But that doubt is not the truth. It's the ego trying to preserve an old pattern. Your desire to start a holistic service is proof that the path is already chosen at the level of your mind. The truth is your offerings were given to you to give to others, and giving them is how you remember and how you come back to yourself. I spent years winning Emmys at ABC News while secretly knowing I was meant to help people heal. Friends would come to me with their problems, strangers would open up within minutes of knowing me, but I kept these gifts hidden because I thought I had to choose between money and meaning. But here's what changed everything. There are powerful tools and frameworks to help transform a complete beginner into a confident, competent healer. That's exactly what I teach in my free training. What's most important for you at this early stage is getting clarity on whether healing is the right path for you. The longer you experience this internal tug of war between your desire to be a healer, but then doubting yourself, the more likely it is you'll do nothing and give up on your calling. So I want to encourage you to take the bold move to break that vicious cycle today by watching my free training. I'll share with you the spiritual wisdom that took me from a burnt out corporate professional to a healer while making more than I did in my corporate job and being able to live more comfortably, but more importantly, give back even more and be glad to be of service. So if it turns out healing is the right path for you, I'll also tell you exactly how you can get started on your path today. So click the button below and you'll get instant access to the free training. I want to know that I'm asking it the right way, but you talk about predictive programming, and does that change your perception of reality?
Predictive programming would be what programs your perception of reality, but without you knowing it. So it's a way to access the subconscious. We'll see this a lot with subliminal cues, or just with things where we saw, let's say in the news, or we kept hearing repetitive narratives, until all of a sudden, now we're not even shocked when the event occurs because we've already subconsciously been so either groomed to it or accepting of it or even just expecting it.
Wait, what's happening? How is that? I want to know, as me being a journalist in the past. So I was a mainstream journalist, Good Morning America, #1 morning show, all these things, and for 12 years. And when I left 5 years ago, I haven't watched the news once. I could not tell you one thing, I'm not exaggerating, one major news event.
Well, good.
If it's something like, if it's like insanely big, like who got elected president and like everybody in the world knows it, I know it, but I can't tell you one thing beyond that. And so I'm curious, like how is this perception, or this predictive programming, how is that happening in the real world now?
Yeah, so one thing first I want to say before I answer that is that unlike many other people inside either the esoteric field like myself or spiritual field, I actually do not have a very large calcified view of righteous or judgment around people's paths. I'm actually aware that if one person or many people chose to infiltrate specific systems, that they're not, like I feel like there's a very just strong and limited and narrow view from people who become aware of these things about other people's dharma and other people's paths, instead of looking at the person from actually a larger consciousness, a higher consciousness, a more unified field, and go, oh no, that person is doing something and I'm not. That wasn't my thing to do. And so it's like, for me, I see people in so many different walks of life that they're not doing what I'm doing, but they're still on assignment. They're still on a mission. Whoa. And so I just wanted to say that, because when I talk about the news or the media and things like that, I am very fluid. I'm very nuanced. I don't come from a large, bold, calcified judgmental place.
I love that you're saying all this, honestly, because, and having been in that world, like these are still a lot of my friends and everything. I don't watch the news because I don't want that in my nervous system. I don't want to be stressed or whatever, but not because I think there's some big mass agenda or whatever. And if there is, it's like you said, I'm so detached from that. Of like, okay, that's just another thing that's happening, right? That's just something that's happening in the world, right? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like, oh my God, we need to change it and get in there. And like, I'm not like that radical frame point that we really do see in this world a lot.
Yeah, and I feel like, once again, it has to do with really being able to have a stronger cohesion of like what's going on. Because we could sometimes be, what I've noticed so much in my own career, friendly fire, where I have a very strong affinity for Gnosticism.
Me too.
I would consider myself neo-Gnostic.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah, if there were anything to, Hermetic,
yes.
neo-Gnosticism.
So you're talking about like Gnosticism, like the Mary, the Gospel of Mary, things like that?
Yeah.
And Thomas, and
yes.
Okay, yeah, same,
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And so those teachings were, what I would consider very strong ascension teachings. They were ones meant to counterbalance the ones that were trying to pull people into sleep. And so you take that spiritual war that's going on at that level, that metaphysical level of, you see played out in Gnosticism, trying to wake people up to the God within, versus the ones that are trying to create control systems through that narrative. You see that spiritual opposition playing out on that level, and then that fractalizes, that plays out on every level. And so when it comes to predictive programming, and you know how this one of the arms, one of the extensions of those forces, let's call them, I call them the powers that were, but let's just call them forces of calcification. So if some forces want you to open your heart, open your third eye, awaken yourself, then there would be, you know, forces that want to calcify.
Did you come up with that?
Yes.
So good.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it's really brilliant.
Yeah, so forces of calcification. They want to calcify your, you know, your unity consciousness heart center. They want to calcify your third eye. They want you to go back to sleep. They want you to be controlled. Those forces will play out just like anything within the media, just as well as any other section. But there's always going to be that spiritual war. There's always going to be these different influences. We could look at it that way too. And so when it comes to predictive programming specifically, it's a way to wake a person up to the sovereignty of taking back their own perceptions, taking back their own power from narratives that were already predestined or pre-designed to disempower a person.
It's such a good way to put it. And I've never, I've really studied the Gnostic text like heavily, and I love it, but I never have made that perspective into how it applies with what's going on now.
Oh yeah. So time is a funny thing.
Yeah.
And because of that, I really feel like when we look at the past and we see things very definitively, like, okay, you know, you'll take out a timeline. Well, I mean, I talk about timelines all the time. How am I supposed to really believe one timeline from the past and then act like that's the authority when you know how easy timelines can change? And when you're of a higher density, if you're a higher density being, you could change timelines from our past all the time. And so because of that, I see the Gnostic texts as actually implanted there by higher density benevolent beings that were meant to go kind of like counteract what the other narratives were doing.
And it is like a wild deviation if you read it. It's like God is inward, and I mean, just Mary is the leader. There's just so many things that are different when you read it from that perspective. And I actually had a client who was is a pastor in like the South here in the US, and even working with me, I don't think she would ever share that with like a congregation that she works with, an energy healer, you know. But she knew about the Gnostic text, and she said, "Oh, Frank, if I was in seminary, I wouldn't even be able to ask, oh, hey, what about like this stuff?" They would just be like, no, that's discredited. Oh, no, that's not, we don't talk about that. Like there was not even, you can't even inquire.
Yeah.
You know? And I like the way you put it, of not necessarily a battle between like these forces of good and evil, but more of like love versus fear, ascending versus descending. Can you kind of explain that framework a little bit? Yeah,
and so we ourselves as humans are at a specific milestone, we could look at it, of universal consciousness. So humans are like universal consciousness looking back at itself through memories and going, remember when I was a human? That was so cute. And so humans here have a specific milestone, just like how babies need to learn how to walk at a specific time. And so humans here are specifically placed with so many different influences, opposite influences, things that like we're confused, right? Like that's why things like my show Mystery Teachings is something that is so popular. It's because it's like, oh wait, this brings clarity. And so we're always like confused, like what is this? What's reality and stuff like that? Could you imagine a different reality in a different dimension that knew all of that and had clarity as their base?
Right.
Here confusion is our base, and it's for a reason. And it's because we have that small free will that's going, what would you do if you didn't know? What would you do if you came to this whole reality blind? And then through that, the through line is, would you be in alignment with natural order? Would you do unto others as they would do unto you? And that doesn't mean, when I say that, like like from your first life here. I mean like over time, as you're learning from your errors, as you're learning from your reflections, as you know, you're taking in your own wisdom. Would you over time do something that you feel is aligned with more beneficial things and help awaken others or help serve in whatever capacity and follow your dharma and follow your purpose? Or would you whatever? And so because of that, our milestone is the proper context to even understand what's going on.
It's still interesting because when you say memory, whose memory?
Universal consciousness.
Okay, so the one consciousness, looking back at this memory of humanity.
Okay, so now I'm gonna maybe get too unnecessarily deep. Who's looking back would be like universal consciousness could be like where it makes sense, right? Before you get too abstract and I start sounding like...
But there is another behind it, yes, and that's where I sit.
Okay, yeah, I know you do.
So that's why it's hard sometimes, because it's like, you know, everybody wants to reach higher consciousness, but I'm seeing it as you, me, the awareness was prior to consciousness. Consciousness arose within awareness, which is what we really are.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like getting people even to go to one step back, which is consciousness, is already a huge step. Mm-hmm. But then from where did that consciousness arise? That's you.
Totally. And you laid that out perfectly, because sometimes I want to make sure that a person is following what I'm saying rather than just go off on the whole. So
it's a big job you have. Like, no, really, because you have to like meet everybody where they're at, where it makes sense to the person who is there, but also someone who's dabbling. So it's a huge role to have.
Yeah, and that's actually funny because I tap into that second part that you were talking about in season 2 of Mystery Teachings. But in season 1, I feel like it's actually beautifully interwoven into all of the trials and all of the challenges that a person going through a spiritual awakening meets.
Wow. Okay, that's such a good, like, imagine us having had that 20 years ago. It would have been so useful, right?
Yeah, but they were doing cool things back then, too.
That's true. You're right. You were. LSD or whatever else. Yeah. You posted on Instagram that self-love is the highest expression of bringing abundance into your life. And this is true because consciousness, like we just described, that consciousness is pure love, right? I mean, yeah, okay. Oh God, we can go so deep again with that, because the awareness behind it is not even love. It's nothing. It's just nothing. It's everything. But the consciousness that arose from that arose from this expression of pure love and wanting to express that love. So why is it that self-love, the love of this self, brings abundance into your life?
Oh, that's such a good question. The reason why is because I was getting out of Instagram jail.
Wait, what? That's why? Oh, so then you have to post these memes that are like, oh, that's so funny. I'm not on Instagram jail, but I've been in YouTube jail before, where I'm just like, what happened?
But to answer now the more spiritual part of that, it is because how can you hate yourself into happiness, even if you got monetarily, material world finances?
Yeah.
Would that really even be in alignment with truly manifesting? No, it would not be magnetic, because only through you being as much unconditioned, which is, you know, what we call now in this age authenticity.
Yeah.
But if we're being to the best of our ability, as much unconditionally loving to ourselves, meaning that instead of this ideal self that we have, which is all of the conditions that we've created. So our most conditioned self ends up being this ideal that we made. And then us. Instead, we just take those conditions off and we decondition, and then we merge. That's your most magnetic point. So that's where you will manifest, because manifestation is responding to, literally, your magnetic system. So if you deny something, you're magnetizing what you deny. If you judge something, you're magnetizing what you judge. So if you're constantly out of alignment and conditioned away from true self-love, your frequency won't even be able to manifest. You'll have created things in this life for yourself, but those things weren't coming from manifestation. Manifestation responds to your magnetism.
Right. And what does going back to like fear and love, does that play a part into it as well? Like, are you manifesting from fear and lack, or are you manifesting from love and abundance?
Yeah, and then we could get even more in between those areas. Like we could be, loving ourselves, but still in fear of putting ourselves out there, or still fear of like, oh my God, like how weird I express myself. Like, so it's funny because at a certain point, we can be afraid and still choose love.
Yes, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, and I guess what's the difference too? I would love to talk about this. When you're manifesting, it goes back to the self. Who is manifesting, and what are you manifesting it for? Is it for pleasure of the mind and the body? Because again, from that awakening experience, what I came back with was pleasure has a cause. Pleasure always has a cause. I feel pleasure because of this experience, the situation, the person, whatever else. But happiness doesn't have a cause. Happiness is what you are. Happiness is just your state without all those conditions that you were describing, right? So I guess what I'm asking is, like, when you're manifesting, are you suggesting people are manifesting for pleasure?
So the higher self,
Yeah.
the one beyond universal
Beyond consciousness
yeah.
Okay.
That one at that point wouldn't even care if we're manifesting from pleasure. That one would look at all paths as valid. And also, I do not have, like, if someone else at that level says no, they would totally care. That's great. I'm letting you know just my perception. I speak very authoritative, but when it comes to this is just what I'm tuning into. That I don't see as caring as much about, well, that came from pleasure or not. Because at the certain level of self that we would start caring, it would be in our body mind. Our body mind would start going, wow, I keep doing these things or manifesting these things from pleasure rather than true happiness, and so I'm tasting the flavor of what pleasure is versus happiness. Pleasure feels like not enough. Pleasure feels like always chasing. Pleasure feels like this, and then you burn yourself out, which literally is what enlightenment is. Enlightenment is burning yourself out. Once you've exhausted yourself of pleasure, then what you start craving still is what is happiness. And so I see that more happening on the level of body-mind, because body-mind is at that point of infinity that starts going, I want to now ascend, or I want to now evolve past pleasure. I want to now align even more or explore even deeper, wherever that may lead, whether it's to a next realm or not, what this happiness thing is.
To a happiness without a cause. Yeah. And even like any of the any of the other realms that you go to, there's still in a way, you can still be in like the most heavenly realm, but not awake there, So it's still like, no matter whether you're in hell, heaven, this realm, that realm, the answer is always still like, if you know yourself, then you're liberated, and it doesn't matter what realm you're in. It's just like, even in this realm, you could be in jail or you could be in a castle, but it's still, when you're so rested in self, and you're resting in self, and that's where you abide, you can just watch the body have that experience rather than create the suffering around it, right? Like if I burn my finger on the stove, okay, there's pain. It was a sensory experience. I felt pain, but my mind is the one that creates the suffering. Oh my God, why was I trying to rush and cook when I knew I have a podcast in an hour? I should just wait and eat after. Oh my God, why did I get an electric stove? I should have a gas stove. It'd be easier to see the flame. You know what I mean? Like, now you're creating suffering where there was no suffering. I don't know why that point came up.
No, I actually love this. Yeah, I enjoy this. Yeah, it's kind of like, I would just consider that our humanness.
Yeah.
Like when we put all of these different types of ways of planning onto something, that could actually, like, I don't mean to defend neurosis, because everything you're saying sounds like what we would consider like, why do we suffer? In that case, neurosis. Look at another reason we suffer. I would still call that neurosis. So I consider a lot of the things that have to do with the ego, and not in a bad way.
Yeah.
Just like when we're not living from pure, as neurosis.
Yeah.
And so that neurosis could just be more neurosis, but also that neurosis can also help us be more mindful in the next time that we encounter that, because we experienced that neurosis already.
Yeah. And you speak also about, speaking of, you can look back on it later and behave differently. You talk a lot about spiritual evolution as well. Do you want to tell me about that, and maybe from the framework of the individual, but also the collective?
Yeah, so remember how we were talking about like Mary and those Gnostic teachings?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm very much aligned with those forces. So what I care about, what those forces care about, is evolution. So because of that, like, manifestation teachings are cool. I actually don't have a judgment, and I know that that's not sexy, because we all need to have strong opinions about everything.
I know. You're so right.
Yeah, so that's fine if people are doing manifestation teachings. That's fine if people are doing other teachings. But all of my teachings, whether they are for manifesting or not, because all of those are still important, but it's filtered through the core lens of spiritual evolution. That's what I care about. That's my genre, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so because of that, mystery teachings actually is done through that lens as well. It's done through, well, why do we need to know about that? Well, why do we need to know about the timelines? Well, why do we need to know about, everything, the through line? Another through line would be to evolve. And evolution isn't something, I know that could sound very evangelical,
right.
But evolution's happening whether a person's evangelical about it or not. It's objective. It's always in motion, and we're either always evolving or devolving. There's absolutely no such thing as staying the same. And so because of that, spiritual evolution would be that like higher impulse.
Okay. What about for the collective?
Yeah, so for the collective, that's where the timeline split really plays a part.
Where are we in that time split? Like, because obviously you and I right now are in the same timeline, right?
You and I are not in time. We are not in time.
Okay. I'm trying to make this
we are
relatable.
out of this universe. No, our body minds are now just talking about like the
Yeah. We're just watching it up here, having a full-on different conversation up there or experience.
Yeah. So like in the timelines.
Wow.
What that's playing out in is like a higher dimensional consciousness, which we call 5D, or a lower dimensional consciousness, which is like what you would consider like the human baseline. The human baseline is over-identification, not even just identification, over-identification with the body-mind, over-identification with everything that is just in the material world, even if that's spiritual. So that's where I'm sure you've already are aware of spiritual materialism.
Yeah,
you seem like you already know those teachings. Yeah. So even materializing the spiritual. So that's all taking place in 3D consciousness. So the timeline split comes into play right now when it comes to literally the spiritual evolution played out through a spiritual awakening journey. If people want to call it something else, they can call it whatever they want. I just call it spiritual awakening because it seems like a very harmless universal term, but played out through a spiritual awakening journey. And so that will naturally start creating a very strong change in their reality, because you actually have more ability to transform your reality when you're more awakened, when you have a higher consciousness. So how can that reality, once you have enough people in it, share the literal physical time-space as people who are over-identified with body, mind, and spiritual materialism? That's what's driving the timeline split. It's actually people waking up. Because now, once you have enough of that momentum, that's gonna create a lot of chaos in that timeline, because the movie line, the storyline can't look the same.
And so within this timeline, there's so many things, whether it's from Vedic astrology or human design, and they have these things like in 2027 we're entering this age or that age. How does that fall into the timeline that this is? So
I will give credit. There was, I forget who, but somebody who wasn't me. Somebody who wasn't me. Some like very hardcore Vedic astrologer expert who had actually said that 2025 was when the Kali Yuga ends.
Right.
And so from my vantage point, how I could blend those together, the Yuga system to me is still under, I haven't cleared it yet. I need to clear a concept yet before I teach it.
Oh.
And so
there's something that within it that you need to clear?
Yeah, because I'm not just gonna I'm not a factory conveyor belt. Like I don't learn something and then share it.
I love that. I love this about you. Yeah.
Yeah. So in mysticism, you kind of just have to already agree to the idea that you're based off of the yuga system. And that's kind of like if we were talking about pizza, that would be the base dough. And then everything else gets built on top of the yuga system. And so I could easily teach the yuga system, but I don't because I'm like, wait. I agree with so many other things, but I haven't cleared that yet, and I don't know why. My intuition just has not cleared.
Maybe when we're done, I can show you something, and you can. I would love to hear your perspective on it because I'm writing now. It's my third book. My second one's coming out in December with Macmillan, but I'm still writing now my third one, and that's the one that's really the spiritual one. And I started in the intro. I end the intro with describing the yugas and where we're at and the time and the framing, but I did so much research around this for like 6 months before I decided to put it in, and still now it's always something I go back and forth about whether I'll keep it in. But 2025 is not where I ended up landing on of where it is, even though that's a lot of modern actually Vedic astrologers say that. But the ones that are like, do you know Paramahansa Yogananda?
Of course.
Right. So his teacher, Sri Yukteswar, wrote a book called The Yogic Science.
Yeah.
And in there, he describes the Kali Yuga, the entire Yuga system. And according to them, like we're actually in Dwarpa Yuga already, and we have been for a while now, for like, I don't know, like 100 years, 80 years, something like that. It's more recent. It's like in the last 75 years, we entered Dwarpa Yuga, which is after Kali Yuga, and it's the age of energy work. And that's why we're seeing more energy workers and people interested in astrology and biohacking, like pulse electronic magnetic frequencies and certain things like that for healing. Even like I have clients who are doctors and ministers and that come to me for energy healing, I don't think that could happen in Kali Yuga.
Well, I would say because I don't have yet, the Yuga system hasn't passed the vibe check. I say this actually just as musings. I don't say this with any type of horse in the race or any type of authority. Yeah. I would say I'm disappointed with the Dwapa Yoga then, because why are there KFCs?
Well, no, you have to realize, okay, if it's like a 7,000 year cycle, we're 75 years in, girl, give it some time, give them 1,000 years.
The Dwapa Yoga I know is contact. That's one of the main kind of like features of it. It is like...
You mean like open contact, like UFO, or what do you mean by contact?
That can be one of the ways, but really just like higher dimensional beings.
Yeah.
Higher dimensional beings. Yeah, that's like what I would consider the core feature of how we know that we're in like the Dwapa Yuga.
Okay.
Because that's one of the things, like when we see like those myths around Aquarius, which is also linked up to like the Dwapa, in different words and different systems, it still links up. That's like Aquarius is like their core esoteric theme would be like contact.
Yeah, but I still think because it's thousands of year cycle, like they could be coming, And also, I wonder because I feel like also in Treta Yuga after is more like telepathic, we don't need to talk as much, we don't eat as much, we're more energy beings. And then of course Sat Yuga, the golden age, but I think like because we're having those telepathic experiences in Treta Yuga, that more contact would be happening then too. But again, musings like you.
Yeah. No, and like I said, like the Yuga system is the core, like foundation. It's the backdrop of mysticism. It's like, what's their backdrop? Well, it's the Yuga cycles. Right. And so, but I feel like my intuition is just like not wanting to accept the Yuga cycles because of something that wants to get created outside of that. But yeah, I still know all about them. Like I still find that fascinating.
Right. Okay, so and what about emotional sovereignty? Because I think also you spoke about morality in the beginning and how people might just look at morality from their own. I think Osho even said, some people will say, well, I never tell a lie. And he's like, okay, but what if your lie is going to get your best friend killed? You can't be so attached to morality, or not from that standpoint. And of course, that was his perspective. But sovereignty, I feel like, has also been used a lot in ways that people are justifying certain things. But tell me about emotional sovereignty.
Yeah, and so I love what you said from Osho because Dharma, when it got passed over into, our culture, there was not a direct translation of the word. The closest translation to Dharma would be nature.
Interesting.
So it would be nature, but like I said, there's layers of Dharma. So when it's talking about nature, it's talking about it from natural law, from the universal consciousness perspective. But as we've already discovered here, there's many different perspectives, and Dharma will locate itself to each. And so the thing about Osho is that I would absolutely agree with that, because at a certain level, Dharma's perfect translation, just how it was perfectly translated to nature, or the closest translation in English language was nature. Now this is coming from me, I would say that Dharma translates at a human level of right and wrong to context. Everything is based off of context. And knowing that is being in alignment with Dharma.
Oof, that's so deep.
So it's knowing, wait, is it bad to steal bread? No, what's the context? Were your kids starving? Then actually the greater good, which is Dharma's context in that point, would be to steal the bread. Emotional sovereignty is when we become emotionally intelligent enough to have that body-mind bandwidth, or what we call resilience. I'm, as an energy healer, we call that allostasis. Like when I'm working with a client, the first part of the session, the higher self is actually just looking for where to give more allostasis to the client, meaning that, yeah, we could do this upgrade. Yeah, we could do this activation. Can the body mind, can the whole energy field withstand it? No. So we need to give them some resources. So those resources, literally at a physical level, is allostasis. It's when, hey, I can handle that stress without crying. Not that there's anything wrong with crying, but I can handle that stress without crying because I have more resources. So becoming emotionally intelligent and then figuring out our internal resources, our support in the external, so that we also have resources in the external, all build up to emotional sovereignty, so that now when we're given these doom narratives or this predictive whatever's happening, it's like, hey, I'm not easy to control. I won't fall into the lower mind, which now will say, oh, take all of my authority, let's go to war, take my this and that, because now we're too paralyzed in fear, or we don't have enough emotional intelligence to really be sovereign.
Oh God, and just to anchor in what you're saying for people, like to connect it back to what you said earlier, you talked about predictive programming, and now we're talking about how if you're emotionally sovereign and you know yourself, you are less susceptible to that programming. So instead of like what you said earlier in your niche, a lot of people are like, oh my God, doomsday, and we need to do this and do that and retaliate. You're like, no, just know yourself. That's the answer. You don't need to fight. You don't need to like rebel or whatever. Just know yourself so that you are in your power in that in those moments.
Yeah. And I view them as rites of passage. Yeah. Like I view some people, you kind of hinting at prepper. That's at least what I call it in my world. Like the preppers, like that's fine. I always tell people, like if you feel like you need to prep, because that will help your emotional bandwidth. That will make you go like, okay, I feel secure because I have this and this and that. And then that security will add to their emotional bandwidth, as long as they're not overridden in that reality. Because then I have to come along and waking them up.
All right.
but yeah, that's exactly where it's going with that. It's making sure that a person becomes so emotionally sovereign that then nothing can be cast over them, so that then, oh my God, well, yeah, we have to go to war with that place because they did, it's like, wait. Why are our leaders acting like emotional little children?
You're actually making me think so much about that too. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
It's like we are getting acceleratedly emotionally intelligent, and with that, that's leaking over into everything, into the way we talk, into our awareness. So then, less karma with that.
Yeah.
Because wow, that pattern took me over because I'm so used to whatever, or we become aware of why we're attracted to our partners or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So that emotional sovereignty builds up, and it will catch up to a point where we can't be rage baited. We can't be divided so easily. We can't just lend all of our energy to outside, things that aren't displaying emotional intelligence or so forth. And I know that there's nuance there, but I'm just talking in very broad strokes.
Yeah, because what was coming up was that you talk about spiritual evolution, and part of that is that people are, I think, more, but again, this could just be my context, like maybe the bubble that I'm in is like, I see people questioning now systems that have always been in place, or like we've always done things a certain way or whatever, and now more and more people are like, but why? Why do we do that? And like, I don't know if it's social media or if it's the collective or if it's everything, all of it together. But people are like more and more doing kind of what you're saying and being like, but why? Why do I have to choose this or that? Or I can like this and also like that. You know what I mean? Or like, these are all the very small examples, but because I don't want to get too political or too whatever, but you know what I mean? People are questioning more and more these systems that have always been in place.
Yeah.
Or is it just in my world that that's happening?
It's happening in my world too. I always leave things open for not my world. Yeah. Like I always leave things open for another experience. So I'm sure that that's not somebody's experience.
Yeah.
That happens to just be my experience, and the people who I interact with experience is that because of the timeline split, what you're seeing is people become more aware. And then on that other side, you'll see the complete opposite, just because the polarity will intensify. So it will almost be like dissolving into chaos more.
Yeah. And obviously people working with you would be amazing one-on-one, but from your show, Mystery Teachings on Gaia, is there a takeaway that people get where they can become more emotionally sovereign through watching the series?
Oh yeah, because I think one of the things is having the display of somebody who's not in distress, communicating these things with evangelical tones of like us versus them. I address all parts of reality, so I could go into duality without denying a person's experience of it. So I do talk about duality, but I talk about duality for the sake of clarity.
Yeah.
I talk about duality for the sake of context, so that then we understand, oh, okay, so there are, forces or these pressures that look dualistic, but we can, through our own awareness, through our own spiritual evolution, start to then become more liberated from whatever pressures are acting upon our consciousness. And so within the series, I would say one of the main things that it gives a person beyond clarity, which will naturally lead to more empowerment and peace, would be that I think it helps a person become more curious about their purpose rather than feel pressure about what to do, what's my call to action.
And I love that you don't really give so much call to action. It's more like, here's what's happening, just so you know. Yeah. It's like, just so you know, like, because a lot of people don't question or don't look at it, and you're just giving different perspectives, but it's all rooted in like science, and like you really actually do the research. But what it made me think of is that in the Bhagavad Gita, for example, any of these texts, but the Bhagavad Gita is a good example because there's a lot of talk in there about meditation and yoga. But did Arjuna ever do yoga or meditation? He received samadhi through just listening to Krishna, just listening to knowledge. From when you just absorb and sit in that knowledge, he was in samadhi while at war, because he then realized, because he went into the fight not wanting to kill, his family. It was a civil war. But then he realized, I am the killer, but I'm also being the one being killed. I'm also the weapons. I'm also the battleground. I'm the screen in which this whole thing is taking place.
Yeah.
So then he was just able to go fully and live his dharma, right? And like do his role of being the warrior and whatever else, fully detached from the entire situation. Not emotionally detached, but detached as like I'm watching a character on a screen. And so it's interesting because like sometimes just hearing the knowledge is enough to get to that state.
Oh, absolutely. And then Arjuna's final form would be to turn at Krishna and then to say, oh, I understand how you helped me with this reality, the objectiveness of this reality, and transcending that, and then transcend even that.
Yes, exactly. That's the transcending the consciousness even. Yes.
Because Krishna in that role was playing, hey, this is the rules to this reality. This is the wheel. And then if he wants to then at that point, even go beyond that wheel. In
your Gaia show, Mystery Teachings, you use the term petty tyrants. Let's talk a little bit about that because we haven't gotten there yet, but you use this word petty tyrants to describe people who challenge us, but ultimately it helps us grow, right? So it's almost like, I guess, Khalil Gibran saying, I learned from the liar or from the thief or whatever else. So tell me about petty tyrants and how they show up in our lives.
Yeah, so petty tyrants comes from Carlos Castaneda's work. And so Carlos Castaneda has a series where Don Juan, who is the shaman, a Mexican shaman, is teaching. And so he uses the vessel to teach this, parable, which is the petty tyrants. And that as you're a spiritual warrior and you go out and you start stepping more into your power, that you're gonna start drawing to you these petty tyrants. And he starts, explaining how to deal with them and then what their role is. And so how I would look at them is really being able to help you clarify where you stand. That's not what they are trying to do. They are triggered. They're triggered and they're usually unconscious, even though actually at this point, what we see now is very conscious, methodical petty tyrants. So that's a new
In life
element.
or in the big picture?
In life.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
They were supposed to be unconscious. It's like, I'll give a real life example, but not for me. Like, it's like when I hear somebody say that their grandpa or their aunt went on their Facebook post and was arguing with them when they, say something about, hey, did you know the chemicals in deodorant? Or, hey, did you know that this preservative is inside our food and it's linked to this health issue? Like when you see like family or friends or coworkers, whoever, show up and try to like shut down or point out what you're doing. Like, oh, you're making a move in life. Guess who's not saying you're making a move in life? The people farthest away from you. The people farthest away from you could give you the most love. The ones the closest can sometimes, not all the time, be the ones that just point things out. And it's like, was that to make me feel better? It's just to kind of shut a person's throat center down, shut a person's willpower down. But when we see them as petty tyrants, what we can look at them as is these clarifiers. This person comes in to oppose you because you're in a specific initiation point. And when they come in and they say, who do you think you are? They're clarifying for you, who do you think you are? Because now you're going to take actions. They're forcing you to take actions. Will you shut down? Will you get back in line? Will you act accordingly? Or will you say, oh, who am I? I'm that girl. I'm that girl. And so they really help a person clarify themselves if we choose to use them that way.
So it's like using conflict or utilizing conflict to turn it into self-mastery.
Absolutely. And even sometimes petty tyrants have specific things they can aid us with without knowing. It might not be their intention, but what if, let's say I had some sort of theory and it wasn't even flushed out and I really started talking about it, and then a petty tyrant comes in and starts really magnifying that thing you said until all of a sudden you're brought with it in like a larger perspective and you see all of its plot holes. Then a person, what are they going to do? Like ignore a mirror? So it's kind of helpful, but in a backhanded way. If we alchemize it, we can take from it whatever is needing to make us more clear and to clarify ourselves and go, okay, wow, I actually see how whatever I thought about the world, I was missing this one thing and it had Swiss cheese holes inside it. And so in that respect, it's not always something that is just bullying, even though it doesn't feel good and it's uncomfortable. It's something that we can still use even if we just never give them credit. Right.
Then you're the petty tyrant.
Yeah. I was like, I learned. Okay, go right away.
Well, the show is called Mystery Teachings. It's on Gaia. Season 1 is already out, and you have season 2 coming out at some point soon.
Yeah, some point next year, 2020.
Some point next year. Okay, and where else can people find you?
Yeah, just through Gaia. And then if you'd like to go on my website, thealchemist.community, you could get, pointed to all of my socials.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much.
Ever since I wrote my goals down with the pen, my dreams and reality have both been blending in. I just hope that in the end, my debt don't extend me on my dividends. If it did, I'd have to keep pivoting.